Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel on human design. I am Pragya Beneval and I help people understand themselves and the world around them so they can interact with it with awareness. In this video, we're going to be talking about generator response, what it is and what it isn't. I think there are so many buzzwords that float around when it comes to the generator strategy and when it comes to understanding the generator type. However, there's actually very little real mechanical understanding of the topic. And I'm going to try to help you understand mechanically what a response is so that you can get in touch with your own response and begin to interact with the world from that place of response. The first thing to understand here is that what makes a generator and what gives them the ability to respond is having consistent definition in the sacral center. The sacral center in the body graph is a motor center that is responsible for all life force and sexual energy in the world. In other words, the sacral center has the ability to respond to external stimuli and release its life force and sexual energy in the world in order to build, develop, and create things upon response. Meaning that it is a storehouse of energy that can be available to build up things in the world upon response. The sacral center is the generative force that can generate energy and put that energy in order to complete certain work. If it is correct for it to do that work, if it can derive satisfaction from doing that work. This, in essence, is a motor that is designed to work for satisfaction, that is designed to output its energy so that it can build something in the world, and building that thing in the world brings it satisfaction. There is a certain amount of endurance built into this motor when it works upon response. This motor has the ability to use all its energy to build something that it is correct for it to build, to completely empty out its fuel tank, and to regenerate through sleep and get back to building the thing that is correct for it to build again and again. This motor is designed to be a process-driven motor that releases its energy step by step and gets compensated along the way by experiencing satisfaction. It is important to reiterate here that the sacral center is a motor center. It's not an awareness center. It works just like a motor does. When something from the outside comes and turns it on, it starts to release energy and it starts to do the work that is correct for it to do, and in return it experiences satisfaction. There is no awareness here. There is no mind coming in that is deciding if this is good work or not. There's no spleen here that's deciding if it's safe or not. There's no solar plexus here that's deciding if it's truthful or not. Yes, that awareness can be built through the sacral center. However, the sacral itself is a motor center. It can either release its energy upon response or it shuts down. It doesn't make that energy available in order to build that thing or complete that task. The sacral center can be consistently defined if there is a channel that is defined between the sacral center and any of the other centers. Now, obviously, when we do look at the body graph, when we do look at the possibility that exists in this circuit board, the sacral can be defined through definition between the sacral center and the root center, and the channels that move between the root center and the sacral center are called format channels, And these channels actually have a deep impact on the functioning of the rest of the body graph. When the sacral center is defined through these channels, it becomes driven to do work upon response. The sacral can also be defined through a definition in channels between the G center, the identity center, and the sacral. These definitions can enable generators to give direction and identity to their life force energy. In other words, these channels enable generators to do work upon response that reveals their unique identity and direction in the world. The sacral center can also be defined through a channel between the spleen and the sacral center, and this definition enables the sacral center to be available to develop and build awareness in the world. The sacral center can also be defined through the solar plexus center, and this definition enables the sacral to reproduce and build intimacy and grow things in the world. And finally, the sacral can also be defined through a definition between the throat center and the sacral. This definition enables the sacral center to be available to display its power spontaneously in the world. These generative channels are the bedrock of life on Earth. Without these channels existing and without this ability to be able to output energy in order to build things, the world that we live in would not exist as it does. Fundamentally, all life is possible and all life can grow and evolve because of these generative channels. And this is not just true for human beings, this is true for everything that exists on our planet. It is this motor, this sacral motor, that is giving birth to life and that is allowing life to grow and build and evolve and develop into more sophisticated forms. However, the problem that we are struggling with in the world is that this generative motor has been hijacked by the mind. It has been hijacked by the collective consciousness that thinks that it knows how to use this motor better than the motor itself. And actually what has happened over a period of time, that instead of generators being really in touch with their response, in touch with what they are here to build in the world, they have been manipulated into thinking that their energy can be used in a better way, or that the satisfaction that they derive from outputting energy isn't a good enough end goal, and that they should chase success or peace or something entirely different. The sacral motor is inherently designed to serve others. It is not just the generators that benefit from the world that they build and grow. Every single one of us does. However, the problem is that generators have been manipulated by the greedy collective consciousness that wants to misuse their energy instead of letting them serve us in a way that they can also serve themselves. In order for a generator to be of true service to the world, it has to learn to be of service to itself. It has to learn to be of true service to its own response mechanism. And as long as we have generators that are completely disassociated from their own response, then what is being built in the world isn't really a true representation of this motor, isn't really a true representation of satisfaction. We live in a highly frustrated world because the energy of generators has been misused, and what they are being forced to put their energy to isn't really serving them, and in essence isn't really serving any one of us. None of us really even have an idea of the kind of world that we can experience if we learn about ourselves and learn to live from a place of integrity. if we learn that we have our specific role to play, and then that role serves the larger collective, and that we don't have to constantly live in scarcity, in a survival mindset that forces us to act out of a place of lack and create more lack and disturbance in the world. Another thing that's really important to understand about the sacral motor is that because it is such a storehouse of energy, it gives the generator aura its quality of being open and enveloping, which means that it is constantly humming its little hum in the world and calling people to it, calling the world to it so that it can respond, so that it can be of service, so that it can be put to work. It is this very mechanism, this very magnetic mechanism, enveloping mechanism that a generator has that makes it so attractive to the rest of the world. Every single one of us can hear that generator hum around us, and it inspires us to ask them a question. It inspires us to ask them to do something, to build something, to develop something, to care for something. However, what generators need to become really aware of, that it is this magnetism that also sets them up for manipulation. It is this very magnetism that has led to this systemic misuse of their energy. And until and unless generators realize the importance of what they have, the storehouse of energy that they are, and how to use it correctly, they are consistently going to generate frustration for themselves, and in return, frustration for the rest of the world. So let's talk about the response then. What is a response? What does it feel like? How do you know that you are responding? I think one thing that has become really clear is that the sacral center stores energy, and that it can make that energy available if it's correct for it to use that energy for that thing. We know that the sacral center is not an awareness center, so a sacral being cannot know by themselves if it is correct for them to use their energy for that thing unless they receive some kind of an external stimulus that gives them an opportunity to feel within their body their response. And what is a response? A response is nothing but your sacral center releasing the energy that you have in your motor. And the one thing that's really important to understand is that every single generator, because of the definition they have, is available only to build specific kinds of things in the world. As a generator, you are a very specific kind of instrument, a very specific kind of tool that can only develop and work on certain things, and your motor is only going to release energy when you are asked or prompted to do that work. In other words, you are not designed to be available to do anything and everything. Your sacral motor is genetically activated to only release energy when it is prompted to do certain kinds of things in the world, prompted to do certain kinds of work in the world. So it's really important as a generator to realize that your energy is limited and that your energy is only going to be able to compensate you with satisfaction if you use it wisely, and that you only build things and grow things that you have responded to grow and build. While the non-energy types are constantly in their head trying to mentally strategize and figure out how to have more energy in their life, the energy types, specifically the generators, are constantly in their head about how to use their energy instead of knowing that they are literally designed to pull the world to them and for the world to stimulate them into action. The generators constantly have mental arguments about why they should be doing the thing that they think they need to do, and the answer of that why is never satisfaction, because their mind has deemed satisfaction as unworthy. And it's not that their own mind has deemed satisfaction unworthy. It is that the world at large has deemed their satisfaction unworthy because it doesn't serve the homogenized world's agenda of survival. And don't get me wrong, I'm not against survival. We all need to survive as a species, and things have progressed in the world as they have for a reason. This is the way that the program has enabled us to get to the place that we are now. But the place that we are now, with the knowledge that we have and the potential wisdom that we can have, we can now transform our lives from being about survival in the world to thriving in the world as our unique selves. And when I say thriving as ourselves in the world, I don't mean fulfilling every single desire of our mind. What I mean is having the presence of our signature in our life, having the presence of right allies in our life, having the presence of the right challenges in our life. I know, for one, the deep impact of that, the impact of living your signature in the world, and how deeply fulfilling that is, regardless of what fancy things in the world I have or don't have. My success is the most meaningful feeling to me, and I know that generator satisfaction is the most meaningful feeling for a generator. And being in tune with that satisfaction and prioritizing that satisfaction and realizing that satisfaction is only possible when they correctly use their energy is really, really important for generators that are awakening to their being. So generator response is the rising up of your life force energy. Generator response is the opening up of your sacral to give you energy to engage with something. Generator response is the energetic expansion that you experience within your body upon receiving some external stimuli. Generator response is opening up or closing up to something before your mind gets involved about why you should or shouldn't do something. Generator response is about finding out who you are moment to moment without deciding who you need to be or who you should be. Generator response is about enjoying the process that you are in, regardless of what the end result of that is going to be. You see, generator response is just you being connected to your own flow of energy, or you being connected to the disconnection that you have from your own energy when something is being asked of you, or when life is bringing in some external stimulus. Now, let's also talk about this external stimulus. Do you always need to be asked in order for you to respond? My personal observation and experience of living with 3 generators is that generators are always responding. Sometimes being asked questions can be really integral to their process. However, I don't see it as something that's absolutely necessary for all generators all the time. I'll give you a really simple example. Just a few days ago, my dad, who's a manifesting generator, saw a bird floating in a bucket full of water. His immediate response to that was to drain that water out of the bucket and to allow the birdie to walk out slowly and begin to dry itself so that it can fly away again. Now, he didn't need to be asked, hey, Do you want to save this bird from dying? He just responded to external stimulus. He just responded to seeing the bird in trouble. And I think this is so important for generators to realize within themselves, so that they don't get in their head about their own response, is that they are responding all the time. In fact, it's not just the generators that are responding all the time. Pretty much all of us are responding to life all the time. But it really serves generators to be in touch with their own response and to be connected with their life force and to really feel for themselves if there is that rising up of energy, if there is that building up of energy, if there is something energetic inside of them that is available for them to output it into the world. It is so important to understand that generators don't always need to be asked questions by other human beings in order for them to be in their response. Does it help? Yes. And it helps specifically because of the kind of world that we live in. As I described before, generators are really disassociated from their own response mechanism, and sometimes being asked directly, very specifically, certain questions can really help a generator understand their own energy mechanism and their availability of energy or not, and what that feels like in their system. I think this is why there is this beautiful dynamic between projectors and generators, and that this relationship is a necessity in the future, because we have had hundreds of years of misusing generator energy to the point that they are so far away from being in touch with their own generative energy that they need these focused beings that can look into them and that can ask them, do you really want to do this? Do you really have the energy to grow this? Do you really have the energy to build this? Does working on this make you feel satisfied? What is also important to understand as a generator, that yes, typically a generative motor grunts and has this way of making sounds. I mean, you meet a generator child and you're around them and you can hear them grunt through life. You can hear their aha, You can hear the sounds that come through a generator that is not yet conditioned to be up in their mind and constantly make decisions from a mental place. However, it is also important to understand that these sacral sounds are not your response. They are a way for you to hear your response. And so I think this is another thing that people get confused a lot. I'm being asked questions and I don't really experience these sounds within myself. Well, certain gates are specifically not designed to make these sounds. For example, the 34, which is part of the integration system and therefore has been mutated over a period of time to not make these sounds. And oftentimes there are also some other people that don't experience these sounds. But I think the thing that I'm trying to say is that your response is the release of energy, is the availability of energy that can be experienced through listening to your sacral sounds. However, the sacral sounds by themselves are not your response. And therefore, if you don't experience them in your life, it's absolutely fine. It doesn't mean that you don't have a response. What you need to do as a generator to be in touch with your response is to feel this connectivity to your sacral center, is to feel the availability of energy that you have within your body or not. And I think it can look very different for different generators. I've heard it be described as a force in the lower part of your body. I've heard it be described as sparkles. I've heard it be described as a push. I've heard it be described as an opening. I've heard it be described as a subtle bubbling up of energy. There are so many ways in which generators will describe their own response. And so I don't think that it's really beneficial to get stuck with listening to how other people experience their response. What is really beneficial and practical is for you to start to feel within your own body as you interact with life. And I think over a period of time, you get quite a good hang of what your generator response looks like. And another really helpful tip here is that when you do experience that generator response and that you do end up outputting that energy and experiencing that satisfaction, it is really, really beneficial for you to follow that track of, I had a response, I started doing this thing, and I started to experience satisfaction. And I think being able to follow that energetically within yourself gives you a really good felt sense of what your response is like, and therefore of what your response is not. Doing things because you think you should do them is not a response. Doing things because they need to be done is also not a response. Continuing to do something when you feel exhausted is not a response. Doing something without experiencing satisfaction is not a response. And don't get me wrong, I fully understand, practically speaking, the kind of world that we've built and the kind of world that we live in is a world in which certain things have to be done that you don't want to do. But I think what I'm speaking to here a little bit more is the timing of things. It's about not forcing yourself to get something done now when you don't have a response for it versus getting it done eventually when you do respond to it. So give yourself the space and the time to really be prompted into doing, into building something rather than mentally checking off lists. Okay, I think that's enough for this video. I wanted to also speak specifically to the different channels in the sacral and talk more about the specificity of what you are here to respond to. Maybe I'll make another video because this is already a super long video, but in any case, I hope this was really helpful. I hope that this brings you a little bit more connection with your sacral center and ability to track that connection, and that you can experience more satisfaction in your life, because I, for one, really, really want to live in a world in which generators are connected to their life force energy and they build a world that is full of satisfaction. I know it's just a mental utopia, but if even one generator can do that, I'd be happy. Okay, thank you. Bye.